What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub channel. My name is Jack, and in this video I'll be talking to FPL Salah Abdul about Game Week 22 and his plans for Game Week 23, the big double coming up. But before we get into that, first of all, I need to introduce myself. This is my first video here. I'm taking over from John, who was the previous host, who is now going on to do his own thing and focus on his own channel. So I am a YouTuber myself with my own channel with about 500,000 subscribers, but I'm also very into fantasy football. Over the past few years, I've had a couple of top 5k finishes, with my best one coming last year just outside the top 1000. But obviously that is nowhere near the acumen of FPL Salah Abdul. So without further ado, let's jump into a conversation with him and see what he's saying for the upcoming game week. All right then, I'm now delighted to say that I'm joined by Abdul, aka FPL Salah. Mate, how are you doing? Pleasure to be chatting with you today.
I'm good, Jack. Yeah, thanks. How's yourself, mate?
Yeah, mate, not too bad. So, time of recording, this is Tuesday. Obviously, got one more game still to go, the double tomorrow. But so far, mate, how's it been going? How's this week gone?
Not too good, actually, Jack. I've got about 60 points, which is a small red, but kind of compared to the rest of the field, like on Twitter and like, you know, the kind of top teams in the top 10k, I'm about kind of, you know, 5 to 10 points behind. I think it's mainly because obviously I used my triple captainship on Haaland in Game Week 20, and then so there's obviously a lot of Rashford triple captainers out there. So yeah, I'll be happy to kind of finish about the same as where I was at the start of this week. To be honest, if I finish there, I'll be more than happy. Because obviously Rashford's still got one game to go, so that could get worse.
Yep. Obviously, you've got Fernandes though as well. I think his EO is roughly 50% top 10k, so he could come in clutch for you. I noticed that we actually made the same transfers last week as a lot of people in the community seem to have done. What are your thoughts on selling Kane?
I still stand by it, because selling Kane was to get Nketiah for next week. He had a good fixture against Everton. Obviously, you know, we couldn't have, you know, Arsenal obviously got to beat that game, but you know, it sets me well for triple Arsenal for game week for Game Week 23, and also gave me you know, triple United because I bought in Bruno for Game Week 22. So yeah, so I still stand by the transfers. I mean, Kane is one that obviously I don't plan to go without him for too long. I think I will bring him back at some point soon, maybe like Game Week 26, 27. But I do think, you know, from now until that point, you know, he could be gone without because of the doubles that are coming up.
Yeah, I'm completely the same. It's one of those ones that you just, when I saw the chance fall to him, you just Kane against City. It's the sort of thing you can't really ever predict him to score against City, but he always seems to. You know, it's just, maybe it's a bogey team sort of thing, but yeah, he's too good, that guy. It's unbelievable, and obviously breaking the record as well.
I mean, it was kind of. I don't think anybody was surprised that he scored.
No, exactly.
The KDB benching was a sore one to take, but as you probably know, we kind of, you know, we weren't surprised by that, because, you know, Pep did bench him a few weeks ago in Game Week 20, you know, against Spurs when they played, and he put Alvarez in that position. So it was kind of expected. It wasn't a big surprise. Still, obviously disappointed, because, you know, he'll end up with 1 point and Kane with 8. But I still kind of feel confident in that, because the transfers that we made are kind of, you know, should be judged over 3 to 4 game weeks, you know, once the doubles are over and once we kind of get to Game Week 25. So with the extra fixtures, I'm still confident I can be, you know, up on those moves by the time we get there. So we'll see. I think we're about 7 points down so far. So yeah.
So obviously moving on to the next game week, another double. It seems to be coming thick and fast right now. And on De Bruyne, interestingly, you know, what would you say, or who would you say now are your optimal 3 Man City players? Let's start with them. And is De Bruyne one of them?
I mean, that's the $1 million question. I mean, just to answer the question, if I was to give my top 3 now, obviously Haaland's number 1, right? And then I'd say Mahrez number 2 and KDB number 3. The reason for that is because I do like the reason why obviously it wasn't a big surprise that he was benched against Spurs was because there was talk, you know, there's a great Man City account. There's a few good accounts out there who kind of, you know, specialize in Man City kind of predictions, and, you know, talk about them. Luke Williams is one of them. Yeah, who basically kind of, you know, talked a lot about Pep preferring Alvarez when the opposition play back 3. So we did expect, you know, not expect, but we did think there was a chance of him having a bench against Spurs because they play back three. But with Arsenal and Villa, they play a back four. So I think we can be about 80 to 90% confident that KDB starts them 2 games, right? On that basis. With Mahrez, I think he's just one of the players that is in Pep's good books right now. I know he was taken off in the 59th minute, but he hit the crossbar and hit the crossbar. I don't think he played too bad. So I do think he's still that kind of the best City midfielder to go for right now. So yeah, those would be my top 3 picks. But it's just a weird one in terms of if you've already got them, it's fine. But the question is whether to bring them in because bringing them in this week, we're going to be looking at the likes of, getting rid of Bruno, for example.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to ask you. People that have started or had the plan of doing the Bruno KDB hokey cokey, did they still do it?
I think so. I don't think that one game should put you off because, as I said, it wasn't a huge surprise that benching him, but I do think he's still, and I do think the odds are in favour of him starting the 2 games in the double, right? I think the kind of the percentage chances are enough to make that move, but at the same time, keeping Bruno for Leicester and Leeds, 2 great fixtures. Bruno's going to play 90 minutes in those 2 games. He is kind of nailed to play minutes. He's got penalties. That was confirmed last week. So yeah, it's a tough move, but if you've got maybe another path that you might want to take, if you can get a Mahrez instead, if you've got cash in the bank for maybe an Almiron, I know he's a popular option now, or even like an Ake or a Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis at 3.9, again, we're not going to expect him to play, maybe he'll play 3 to 5, 3 or 4 games over the next 5 if you're lucky, but 3.9 million, he can be your 5th defender and, it's not much of a risk. So there's definitely options there. I don't think it's definitely not a no-brainer to do, a Bruno to a KDB or a Mahrez this week.
Sure. Interesting you mentioned Ake and Lewis there. In terms of a lot of people's team structures, I imagine that 3 City attackers isn't that viable for this upcoming double. So if people are looking at a Man City defender, as risky as that may be, I know I've got Ake at the moment. Who would you say to go for there then if you could choose just one?
From what I've read and seen so far, I think Akanji and Ake are the 2 who are likely to play the most games. I'd say over the next 5, they're probably likely to play maybe 4, or they have the most chance of playing 4 out of the next 5, and both games over the double. So yeah, it's really your pick with Ake or Akanji. I think if you've already got Ake or Akanji, you just stick to the ones you've got. But if you're bringing them in, then yeah, it's a decision. I personally at the moment leaning towards Akanji. If I was to bring in a Man City defender.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah, because it's a super tough one. Just the expected minutes is crazy. And obviously, look, Pep's trying to innovate and understand that. But it does seem quite strange to me that he's not playing the likes of Diaz and Laporte. I know they've both been injured and in and out of the team, but players that have been so successful for him in previous seasons where they've walked the league and just dominated. But anyway, I'm not Pep, so there you go. Anyway, let's move on to Arsenal now, because a lot of people are already tripled up on Arsenal. I can imagine. Now, we need to talk a little bit, I think, about Martinelli, because he's not been in the greatest form since coming back from the World Cup. Well, not that he went, but, the World Cup in general. And now, with the signing of Trossard, his minutes, as we saw against Everton, are they too much of a risk to keep him in the team? Is it worth a transfer, if you already have 3 Arsenal players, to move Martinelli on?
It all really kind of depends on your team, how many transfers you've got. So it's a luxury transfer, put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't expect Trossard to start any of the next 2 games. So I think over the double, Martinelli will start both. Well, at the same time, I wouldn't be, you wouldn't be. It's the same with this KDB situation. You expect them to start, but you wouldn't be surprised if Trossard ends up getting 1 start. All it takes is him to have like a really bad game against Brentford to be benched against City. So it's a luxury transfer for me. So if, for example, you've got your triple Arsenal there, and you've got triple City already, and you've got 2 free transfers, then yeah, if you can move up to an Odegaard or a Saka, I think you can do it. But if you've only got, for example, 2 City like myself. So I'm in that dilemma right now. So I'm kind of thinking, do I move to an Odegaard, or do I, prioritize bringing that third City player in? So, and I think in this situation where you've only got two City players, I think the City player kind of takes priority over Martinelli to Arsenal defender, because I don't think he's a bad option, Jack. If you look at his underlying numbers, his numbers are still good. I think he's actually got the highest XGI, expected goal involvement, since the World Cup. He's just not got the returns yet. But again, the minutes are a concern. Even if he does start the next two, I don't think we'll see many many times get substituted off around the 58th, 59th minute. But you're probably talking maybe 75, around the 70 mark, 80 if you're lucky. So that is still a concern when you've got a Saka there who's nailed for 90 minutes and on penalties, and an Odegaard who's absolutely nailed and probably nailed for 90 minutes most games as well. So yeah, he's definitely the third bit. I think he's definitely at the moment the fourth best the fourth best Arsenal option.
Sure.
But it really just depends on your team whether you move him on or not, I think, this week.
Yeah. No doubt a luxury transfer. The thing for me is I was happy to keep him. As you said, the stats were pretty good. I mean, very good. And, a lot of the time you just get a bit unlucky, or you don't have that same sort of form. But if the stats are still there, you're happy to keep him, and he was still playing pretty well. It's just the minutes now, especially across a double, that that Everton early sub was a bit like, oof, this he might not actually be that good. And if anything, is it really a luxury transfer if you're predicting him to get, say, 120 roughly minutes across the double, and you're looking at the likes of Saka, you have the money to go to Saka or Odegaard, and they're going to be on more like 160, 180. It might just be worth doing it anyway if you have the transfers, of course, as you say. So that's Arsenal and City done. Outside of those two teams, though, obviously it's likely that people's transfers will be based on those two teams this week. Yeah. Outside of those two teams, any key players that you're looking at, maybe not for 23, but that are just in your mind that you don't necessarily have yet, or that are perhaps a little bit outside of the template?
Yeah, so I've been desperate to get Mitoma in my team, and some Brighton assets like Lewis Dunk, who's only 4.5 million. But obviously, they had great fixtures. They had Bournemouth last week, and then they've got a good fixture up until 25. But obviously, as we all know, they've got a blank at 25. But I mean, I guess if your team, the teams that are blanking this week, I think a lot of people will be in a good position to have like 10 or 11 players going into that game week. So depending on your team, you can bring in Brighton assets, if you've got, the sufficient kind of players and a plan there to get 11 out in game week 25. So Brighton assets are definitely kind of on my radar. And I think, again, what we were talking about before, Harry Kane, he's in my thoughts as well. But, again, after 25, once all the doubles, etc. are over, start looking at him again. But yeah, I think mainly, Brighton assets, because they're going to have, I think they've got four fixtures or three fixtures to be rearranged. So they're going to have a lot of double game weeks coming up.
Yeah.
So their assets are going to be highly popular very soon.
It's an interesting one. And we said it on stream with John on Friday. It's how much do you value the fact that in 25 people like players like Mitoma aren't going to have a fixture, but then are you also just leaving points on the table? And we said, if Mitoma gets 20 points, let's say, across those previous 3 game weeks, 22, 23, 24, before 25, just get him in, and then you can, he's going to get you 20 points. You can utilize those 20 points with a 4-point hit, but maybe now it's a bit too late for that, given 25. I don't know. It's always a tough one every single year, I find. Just how much do we value the fact that they are not going to literally play in a week based on, the great fixture they may have round about now. And again, maybe it's a luxury transfer, but I don't know. Anyway, should we get on to your team and your plans for this week? Because as it stands, you have a relatively similar team, I'd say, to quite a lot in the community, but you do have a few interesting players, the likes of Reece James now, back on the menu. Fair play, I'll say, for holding him for this long.
Yeah, I'm still hurting from that 59th minute.
It's just, I remember, when the ball goes up, you see him getting ready at 58, and people are just saying, "Please, I saw the ball on the pitch."
At 58. And I saw Aspilicueta and Sterling getting ready, and I thought, oh my God.
Exactly.
I was like, please don't. And then Paulina hit that shot like in a row Z. And I was like, damn.
What can you do? It's just, it does seem as if it's been particularly painful this season with some 59th minute substitutions, but yeah, nonetheless. So captaincy, I presume, is going to be on the big man.
Sorry to say that again.
Captaincy this week on Erling Haaland.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's going to be Haaland. I mean, I don't think it's wise to go without Haaland, especially in a double game week. So yeah, Haaland's going to be the captain. I think the big decision for me this week is, again, that third City asset.
Yeah.
Whether to bring in Mahrez. I could do Mahrez to. I mean, what I was thinking of, I could do a Bruno to Mahrez, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, he's not guaranteed to start both them games in the double. But then they've got Bournemouth and Forest, so they've got good fixtures come to Game Week 25 as well. Yeah. So he's a good kind of short-term investment anyway. Also, I was looking at, with that transfer, possibly doing Martinelli to Saka, but that would be a -4. I just can't. Although I really want to do that transfer, I don't think I can justify it.
Okay.
I don't think I can justify, doing a -4 for, a double gaming player in the same team. So, yeah. So at the moment, that's kind of where my thoughts are at the moment. I could even possibly do something like a Shaw to an Ake or a Kanji or a Rico Lewis, because I think Shaw's probably going to be on the chopping block soon because he's got a blank in Game Week 25.
Yeah.
I think there's better defensive assets, that we can own in the next few weeks. So yeah, it just really depends on that third City asset, which third City asset I'm getting. And at the moment, I'm really unsure. Mahrez is, of course, top of the list, but it could be a. I mean, I can even go for Ederson. I can even do like a Ward or a Kepa to Ederson, because I know Ederson's going to start. But I don't know if that's a bit too a bit too conservative. I think when you're looking at, kind of playing the upside with Pep, you'd rather go with the attackers, because with them, you can, you can, even if they come off the bench, they can still get a big haul. Whereas with Ederson, you're probably looking at, 6 points or 2 points really. So yeah, I'm a wee bit stuck at the moment, Jack. So it's gonna be a long week FPL wise.
And interesting, I've got your team up on screen on the My Team tour now. A bit of a benching dilemma as well, right? I don't want to speak on your behalf, but who are you thinking of first bench?
So right now I'm thinking of putting Shaw. So Shaw's coming on my bench, and I've got James. So I've got James, White, and Trippier in defence at the moment, and I've got Shaw on the bench. I just think, firstly, I think the clean sheet chances are probably around about similar. I do think James has always got that much higher attacking threat, more upside. And he played 59 minutes in his first game back, and it was quite a surprise to a lot that he started that game.
Yeah, I did not expect him to start that game, I will say.
Yeah, I didn't either, and the only reason I started him because we got kind of early team news before the deadline, so I kind of switched him for Mitrovic. But playing 59 minutes in your first game back is quite reassuring. So I do think he'll get more than 60 minutes this game. No, I don't think he'll get the full 90, but should get enough to get the clean sheet point if he keeps if they don't concede. So that's where I'm at the moment. That could change though, during the week. Seeing the press conferences, see what Potter says about James and his starting chances, etc. But right now he's in the starting 11.
Sure, and obviously it's only Tuesday. Still got another Premier League game to go where you have 3 players involved.
Exactly.
So anything could happen. Yeah, of course. Still. Okay then, mate. I think unless there's anything else that you have in mind that's a pressing issue, I think that's everything. I think we're prepared for the double.
Yeah, just waiting for hopefully Rashford doesn't go too mad tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I don't. His EO is not too high over 200, so it should be okay. But Bruno's the one if you have him that could be a solid little differential. Well, not differential, but a good little point swing after the pain of Kane. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. My first video, so go easy on me in the comments if you don't mind. Abdul, a pleasure. Look forward to doing this more with you. And with that being said, see you guys soon.
See you guys, bye.